Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and over the course of the past few weeks, we have talked about red-black midrange and Pioneer quite a bit. We've done a deck tech where we talked about the cards in the deck, overall strategy of the deck, how to play the deck. We've talked about how to sideboard against the top 10 most popular decks in the format. We've also looked at different flex slots and builds to make your very own red-black midrange deck, and tips and tricks for the deck to play against, or if you're actually playing with the deck. I want to combine all those videos into one big, comprehensive deep dive. Enjoy. This is the updated version of red-black, midrange, and Pioneer, and it is so good. It is totally dominating Pioneer at the moment alongside Gruul Aggro. And I like playing this deck against Gruul Aggro personally. As far as the lands go, there's not a lot going on except for playing the 4 Mutavaults, because one of the new additions to the deck is Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber. So I'm going to kind of skip right to that and explain why we're playing the Mutavault, and because this is the big new addition that really pushed the deck over the top, and knowing this card's in the deck really explains a lot of the other cards that we're playing. So Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber. One is a room. On one side of the room is a 3-mana Unholy Annex. Is an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life, which means you draw a card every single end step. So you draw a card every turn, including the turn it comes out. And we're incentivized to have demons on the battlefield. That's a big reason why we're playing Mutavault, because Mutavault is a colorless land that comes in untapped, which is great. And when you pay 1 mana, which you can pay, you can tap itself to make a mana, though it won't be able to attack that turn. It becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types still on a turn. It's still a land, which means it's a demon. So Mutavault's just like a really cheap way to make sure that we have a demon on the battlefield, so we can draw a card and drain our opponent rather than lose life. We're going to make a couple of the decisions regarding Unholy Annex as well. And then the other side, Ritual Chamber, 5 mana. When you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with Feline. So it combos with itself as well. And also it's a threat and our card draw, which is disgusting. As far as the rest of the deck, it is very much a red-black mid-range shell. We're playing 2 Duress and 4 Thoughtseize to tear apart our opponent's hand. Duress is a 1 black sorcery. Target opponent reveals our hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. And then Thoughtseize is a 1-mana sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. You choose 2 life. So you lose 2 life. Thoughtseize is obviously a little bit better, even though you lose life, but tearing our opponent's hand is a part of our strategy. In addition to tearing apart our opponent's hand, we're also attempting to answer the things that they play in a 1-for-1 fashion. With Fatal Push is a 1-mana instant, destroy target creature if its mana value is 2 or less, and it has Revolt, destroy that creature if its mana value 4 or less, instead if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. We're playing, so just probably the best removal spell in Pioneer. And maybe in Modern even. Fatal Push is insane. Torch the Tower is a 1 red instant with Bargain. Deals 2 damage to target creature, a Planeswalker. If the spell is bargained, instead deal 3 damage to that permanent and you scry 1. And then the best part about this, if a permanent dealt damage by Torch the Tower would die this turn, exile it instead, which is great against Heartfire Hero, great against Arc-like Phoenix. You know, we just love playing Torch the Tower. And then to round off our removal suite, we're playing 2 Go for the Throat. Go for the Throat is a 2-mana instant, where we destroy target non-artifact creature. There's not a lot of played artifact creatures in Pioneer, so this is a pretty unconditional removal. It's essentially a better Doomblade. So we're tearing apart our opponent's hand, answering the creatures that they put on board, drawing a bunch of cards off of Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber. Oh, and I forgot about Withering Torment. Withering Torment is a 3-mana instant, destroy target creature enchantment, you lose 2 life. So being able to destroy an enchantment is a really big deal, especially against the Enigmatic deck, which is a pretty bad matchup. Also, having additional creature removal is pretty solid as well, even if you lose 2 life and it costs 3 mana. And in addition to tearing apart our opponent's hand and answering what they play, we have a bunch of other ways to get card advantage, get card selection, and apply a lot of pressure. One of the best ways is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is 3-mana saga. Chapter 1 is create a 2/2 Red Goblin Shaman creature token with whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure token. Its second chapter is you may discard up to 2 cards. If you do, draw that many cards. And its third chapter is exile it, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control, and it transforms into a 2/2 enchantment enchantment creature, Goblin Shaman, Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, where you can pay 1 mana and tap it to create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control, except against haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And we can copy pretty much anything in our deck. It feels really good to copy a Blood Tithe Harvester because then we can sacrifice the copy and kill stuff every single turn. Feels good to copy a Fear of Missing Out because then we can filter our draws. Feels really, really good to copy a 6/6 Black Demon. And then there's a combo where if you have 2 Reflections of Kiki-Jiki, you can have it copy itself as many times as you have mana for, untap, or during your opponent's untaps, during your opponent's end step, and deal a ton of damage. So we're using that Fable the Mirror Breaker for some mana advantage, a little bit of pressure, card selection, and then a card that must be answered in Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. In addition to that, we're playing 2 Blade of the Oni. Blade of the Oni is a 2-mana artifact creature. It's an equipment creature, which is kind of funny. It's a 3/1 with Menace. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 5/5, has Menace, and is Black Demon in addition to its other type. So when you just play this card, it is a 3/1 with Menace. That's awesome. We can also reconfigure it to effectively equip to a creature. To make it a 5/5 demon, which is a really good way to push through a ton of damage. Also, again, this is a demon. It's an equipment demon, so that we get the beneficial trigger off of Unholy Annex as well. I was playing 4 Fear of Missing Out. Fear of Missing Out is a 2-mana 2/3 enchantment creature. When Fear of Missing Out enters, discard a card, then draw a card. So we get that card selection, which is awesome. It has Delirium. Whenever Fear of Missing Out attacks for the first time each turn, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. After this phase is an additional combat phase. This is really, really good alongside Shieldred, alongside that Goblin, alongside the 6/6 Demon. Getting that additional combat phase is very, very, very powerful. But really, we're playing this mostly for card selection, and it's a pretty good blocker. And we're playing 4 Blood Tithe Harvester, which is not great with Mutavault, but it is what it is. Blood Tithe Harvester is a 2-mana 3/2 vampire. When it enters, create a blood token. And we can tap it and sacrifice this creature. Tap target creature, get -X/-X till end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's a creature that is aggressively costed. We get to get a blood token, which lets us filter our draws. And then also it's a removal spell and combos with Fable, which is just insane. And then we're playing 2 Shieldred the Apocalypse. It's a 4-mana 4/5 with Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, gain 2 life. Whenever your opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. And we are drawing a lot of cards with this deck, so it allows us to gain a ton of life. It's a great blocker. It applies a ton of pressure and punishes our opponents for drawing. So we're playing very powerful creatures, answering what they play, tearing apart their hand, and drawing a ridiculous amount of cards. As far as the sideboard goes, we already talked about Withering Torment. Again, that enchantment hate is really solid. We're playing 2 Liliana the Veil. It is a 3-mana Planeswalker that starts at 3 loyalty, +1 each player discards a card, -2 target player sacrifices a creature, and it's -6 to separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles. That player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of their choice. So really, we're playing this card against kind of other mid-range decks. It's pretty solid, but also against other like slower decks. Anything that discarding a card is good against, we're siding Liliana the Veil, and then everything else is just gravy, frankly. Playing 2 Extinction Event. It's a 4-mana sorcery. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with mana value of the chosen quantity. Particularly good against mono green, but there are other applications for Extinction Event. It's just like a decent board wipe that exiles, which is super relevant. We're playing 3 Invoke Despair, which is a 5-mana sorcery, 4 black and 1 generic. Target player sacrifices a creature of their choice. If they can't, they lose 2 life, and you draw a card. Then repeat this process for an enchantment and a planeswalker. We'd be siding this card in against decks that go really slow, and we can reasonably cast it. This is a way for black to answer enchantments alongside Withering Torment. It's a way to deal with the creatures. It's a way to deal with planeswalkers, and then it also lets us draw cards and apply a lot of pressure to their life total, which we love. Drawing cards. Playing 3 Hidetsugu Consumes All. It's a saga, where its first chapter is destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Its second chapter, exile all graveyards. Its third chapter is exile the saga. Then return to the battlefield transformed under your control, and it transforms into a 3/3 with trample. Whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage to a player, if it's dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game. So the second part doesn't really matter. The reason you would side this in is if the first chapter is good. Destroying all permanents with mana value 1 or less. So like against Convoke strategies or against the Gruul deck or anything like that, it's just a 3-mana board wipe, which was very good. We're also playing 2 Damping Sphere. Damping Sphere is a 2-mana artifact. When a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. So Damping Sphere is a card that we're using for people that like cheating mana with their lands. So again, I'm thinking like mono green, but it's also decent against some combo decks. It's very good against like the Lotus Field deck. It's really good against the Arclight Phoenix deck. Actually, it's good. Both modes are good against the Lotus Field deck. It's just all around excellent. And then we're playing Unlicensed Hearse for Graveyard Hate. It's a 2-mana artifact vehicle. We can tap into exile 2 target cards from a single graveyard. I'm yawning. And Unlicensed Hearse power and toughness are equal to the number of cards exiled with it, and you can crew it for 2. So really this can pressure the graveyard, pressure the graveyard, pressure the graveyard. And then if it's not answered, it can just be a giant attacker that's really, really easy to crew. So this is the Rakdos Midrange deck in Pioneer. Withering Torment is additional creature hate, but mostly we're playing it as enchantment hate. Liliana the Veil is great for any deck that is going a little slow, just to tear apart their hand. Extinction Event, excellent board wipe. Invoke Despair, again, for these slow decks, it can just give us a giant advantage. Hitotsugu Consumes All, we'd mostly playing for the first chapter, destroying each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less, for aggro decks and stuff like that, for board wipes. Damping Sphere is excellent for decks trying to cheat mana, or decks trying to play a bunch of cards in the same turn, and Unlicensed Hearse is our graveyard hate. Now the most popular deck in Pioneer is Rakdos Midrange is the mirror match. Against this deck, we are just trying to extract as much value as possible. Withering Torment is great. It can answer the enchantments and the creatures, which are the things we care about. Liliana the Veil is very good because not only do we want to sort of attack their hand, but mostly they're going to be winning on the top of 1 or 2 creatures, and being able to make them sacrifice it, put pressure on their hand, is super strong. Similar thing with Invoke Despair, being able to answer all the things and draw a bunch of cards. Now, as a rule, in these long-term mid-range matchups, we know the game is going to go super long, and it's really going to come down to the top decks. And Hand Destruction is an awful top deck. Yes, Thought Seizing your opponent on turn 1 is powerful, but it's not going to win you the game in this matchup. And a turn 11 top deck Thoughtseize might lose you the game. So this is how we're going to sideboard in the mirror match. The second most popular deck in Pioneer is the Gruul aggro deck. Against Gruul aggro, we're bringing in Hitotsugu Consumes All to deal with some 1-drops. And even though I don't like Liliana the Veil, just having additional removal is super important. That doesn't deal damage to you, which is why we're bringing out Withering Torment and why we are cutting Thoughtseize. This is how we're going to sideboard against the Gruul aggro deck in Pioneer, and is actually also how we're going to sideboard against the Boros Prowess deck, which is the 10th most popular deck. The third most popular deck in Pioneer is Izzet Phoenix. Against Izzet Phoenix, we're loving Damping Sphere because then it's really difficult for them to bring back their Phoenixes, and we're bringing in Unlicensed Hearse. And then as a rule, we bring out Fatal Push because it doesn't really answer anything of relevancy because people are playing Artist Talent now. So this is how we're going to sideboard against Izzet Phoenix. The fourth most popular deck in Pioneer is Blue-White Control. We're bringing in Liliana the Veil. We're just trying to extract as much value as possible. I like Liliana. I'm a fan of Invoke Despair. And then we just got to bring out as much removal as possible. Now, unfortunately, we have a little bit too much removal in our deck, which is a little rough, but some decks side into Riptide Gearhulk. So bringing in that Withering Torment's kind of fine because Fatal Push does literally nothing. So this is how I'm going to sideboard against Blue-White Control. The fifth most popular deck is Nykthos Ramp. Against this deck, Extinction Event is excellent because it pretty much wipes their entire board every single time. Damping Sphere stops Nykthos and stops the ridiculous mana stuff from happening. And Withering Torment's actually fine because just removing stuff is pretty powerful. Now, the name of the game is speed and pressure and removal. So things like Unholy Annex, where it gives us card advantage and life total advantage, don't really do anything. So we're going to be shaving on that. I like these 1-mana removal spells because it can kill the Mana Dorks. However, Duress doesn't hit a lot in the deck, so I'm just going to shave that. And that's how I sideboard against Mono Green. The sixth most popular deck is the Dimir aggro deck. Against Dimir aggro, just removal is very powerful. They don't have a lot of creatures on the battlefield very often, so we're bringing Liliana, we're bringing in that Withering Torment, and really kind of treating this like a mid-range deck, so I'm bringing out some of the hand destruction, and this is how I'm going to sideboard against Dimir aggro. The 7th most popular deck is 5-color Enigmatic Incarnation. Withering Torment is excellent against this deck. You need to deal pressure to their hand, so Liliana's great. Also, you need to extract some value and kill more enchantments with Invoke Despair, so that's excellent as well. And these 1-mana removal spells are god-awful against Enigmatic Incarnation, and so this is how I'm going to sideboard against them. The 8th most popular deck is Mardu Greasefang. Against Mardu Greasefang, we really have to treat it sort of like a mid-range deck because they do have a decent mid-range plan, but also attack the graveyard. So Unlicensed Hearts for that graveyard, but also we're bringing our mid-range package, not Liliana because you don't want to help them with the discard, but this is how I'm going to bring in. We have to play a weird balance with our hand destruction because it's not very good when they go mid-range plan, but we also need to be attacking that combo because we'll just lose to it. So I like keeping 2 of the Thoughtseizes in and then just relying on removal. So I'm a sideboard against Mardu Greasefang. The 9th most popular deck is Jund Sacrifice. Against Jund Sac, Unlicensed Hearse is good because it can stop us from being comboed out. Then Withering Torment can be decent against Fable or against those big creatures that like really matter. Shieldred's not very good. It's just too easy for them to answer. And I'm gonna shave on a Fatal Push because it's kind of hard to have it kill something that's relevant. So I'm a sideboard against Jund Sac. And we already know how to sideboard against the 10th most popular deck because this Boros Prowess, we sideboard the same as we do against the Gruul aggro deck. So these are the cards that you're effectively bought into playing if you're playing red, black, mid-range, and Pioneer. These 57 cards in the main deck and these 2 cards in the sideboard. If you want to check out these non-flex slots a little bit deeper, feel free to pause the video. But what this video is attempting to answer is it's giving you information on what 3 cards you select to fill out the rest of the cards in your main deck and what 13 cards you should select to fill out the cards in your sideboard. So these are your options. These 6 cards in the main deck to fill out 3 slots and these 28 cards for the sideboard to fill out 13 slots. So let's talk about the main deck first. You play another Duress, right? 1-mana sorcery, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Very good against control. Is it Phoenix? I actually think it's fine against Nykthos Ramp as well. Obviously great against 5-color Enigmatic. It's kind of like a main deck sideboard card that is generally pretty fine most of the time. You can play another Torch the Tower. This is a 1 red instant with Bargain. Torch Tower deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a spell was bargained, instead it deals 3 damage to target permanent and you scry 1. If a permanent was dealt damage by Torch the Tower would die this turn, exile it instead. Very, very good against the aggressive decks like Heartfire Hero. Also deals with Phoenix permanently. Just all around like a really decent removal spell. Exile removal is very good right now. We can play another Blade of the Oni. Is a 2-mana artifact creature with Menace. Is a 3/1. However, it's also an equipment. Equipped because it has Reconfigure, which you can attach for 4 mana. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 5/5, has Menace, and is a black demon in addition to its other types. So this is an aggressive creature. It can help turn on Delirium because it's an artifact when it's in the graveyard. And then also it's a demon itself and turns things into demons, so it's really good alongside Unholy Annex. You play Go for the Throat, 2-mana instant, destroy target non-artifact creature. This is effectively an unconditional removal spell because there's not a lot of good artifact creatures in Pioneer at the moment. So just decent Doomblade effect. We could play a Withering Torment in the main deck. It's a 3-mana instant, destroy target creature or enchantment. You lose 2 life. You would be playing this in the main deck if you're worried about enchantments. My camera just died. It's fine. For decks like Enigmatic Incarnation, which is often Nightmare matchup, or things like that. And just as another way to deal with creatures like in the Mirror match, but also being able to deal with like Fable the Mirror Breaker or Unholy Annex or whatever. And then you could play another Shieldred in the main deck. It's a 4-mana 4/5. Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever opponents draw a card, they lose 2 life. Just a generally good mid-range card. It blocks aggro decks really well and punishes decks if they draw a lot of cards. So you're going to be selecting 3 of these 6 cards to add to your main deck to join the non-flex slots. And then we're going to look at our sideboard. So I already talked about why you'd play Duress. It's just same argument, just in the sideboard. Anoint with Affliction is a 2-mana instant, exile target creature if its mana value is 3 or less. And then the Corrupted doesn't matter because they're never going to have poison counters. This is just additional exile removal. Just very good against aggressive decks. Unfortunately, doesn't hit Phoenix, but it's not damage based, so that's really, really solid against the aggro decks. Go blank. 3-mana sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards and exile that player's graveyard. Very good against anything that Mind Rot would be good against, or you don't want your opponent to have large graveyards. So decks like Is It Phoenix, Nykthos Ramp, Blue-White Control, frankly 5-color Enigmatic, stuff like that, or even Greasefang. Withering Torment we've already talked about, just in the sideboard. Liliana the Veil is a 3-mana planeswalker that starts with 3 loyalty. Is +1 as each player discards a card. -2 as target player sacrifices a creature. And its -6 is separate all permanents. Target player controls into 2 piles. The player just sacrifices all permanents in the pile of their choice. So if we are siding this card in, we're mostly sideboarding it in for the +1. We want to side it in against decks that keeping their hands small is very, very powerful. So the Mirror Match is decent. Against Nykthos it's decent. Against Blue-White Control it's decent. Against 5 colors decent. Just really any slower deck. We play another Extinction event. It's a 4-mana sorcery. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with mana value of the chosen quantity. This is mostly for Nykthos Ramp, but also it can be good against red deck if you don't have enough cards in the main deck that are better against them. Just any deck that this will wipe their board, it's worth it because we're trying to 1-for-1. If we can ever have a card that is better than 1-for-1, we love it. Speaking of cards that are better than 1-for-1, we could be playing 3 Invoke Despair on the sideboard. It's a 5-mana sorcery. Target opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. If they can't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card, and then repeat this process for enchantment and a planeswalker. You would side this card in just as additional mid-range against like other slower decks that you need to keep up with. So things like the Mirror Match or Control or 5-color just has additional enchantment hate and stuff like that. Torch Tower we've already talked about, same argument, just in the sideboard. Pyroclasm is a 2-mana sorcery, deals 2 damage to each creature. Really good against decks that are looking to go wide. What immediately pops in my head and what's obvious are just the red base aggro decks. Or if you ever run into Convoke again, which has lost a lot of popularity. Anger of the Gods is doing a really, really similar thing. It just 1 more mana, deals with more things, and has exile removal, which we really like against Heartfire Hero again. We could be playing Croxa. It's a 2-mana legendary creature. It's a 6/6. When it enters, sacrifice it unless it escaped. And its escape cost is 4 mana, exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. And whenever it enters or attacks, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card. This way it loses 3 life. So this would be very good against, again, decks that are going really, really long with you. So like the Mirror Match, Blue-White Control, Enigmatic, stuff like that. I don't know why the number's not by this, but we could be playing up to 3 Hidetsugu Consumes All. Hidetsugu Consumes All is a 3-mana saga. Its first chapter is destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. The second chapter is exile all graveyards. And its third chapter is exile the saga, then return to the battlefield transformed under your control. And Vessel of the All-Consuming is the transformed version of it. It's a 3/3 with trample. It deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage to a player, if it has dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game. If you're sideboarding in this card, you're sideboarding it in for the first chapter. You're sideboarding it in against decks that destroy each online permanent mana value 1 or less is good against. So really, this is for like red decks and Convoke. It's a decent board wipe. It also has upside and is able to, like, you have your board wipe win the game later on, which is kind of nice. You'll be playing Damping Sphere. Up to 2, again, the little weird bug. It is a 2-mana artifact. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell the player casts this turn. It's really good against decks that are trying to cheat mana with their lands, so like Lotus Field or Nykthos Ramp, or decks that are trying to cast a lot of spells in the same turn, like Is It Phoenix. You play Up to Do Reckoner Bankbuster. It's a 2-mana artifact vehicle. It's a 4/4, enters with 3 charge counters on it. You pay 2 mana to remove a charge counter from Reckoner Bankbuster and draw a card. Then if there are no charge counters on Reckoner Bankbuster, create a treasure token and a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature cruise vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. And it has crew 3. So you would sideboard in this card against decks that are looking to go long. This allows you to draw those cards. We have a lot of optional cards in our sideboard kind of for that. And the best part about this card is not only does it allow us to draw cards, have the game go really long and whatever, but also it allows us to be attacking with it after, you know, it's out of cards to give us. And we can spread out that mana rather than having to spend like 5 mana on Invoke Despair later in the game. We can play this on turn 2 and then just dump 2 mana into it whenever we have it. And we can play up to 2 Unlicensed Hearse. Unlicensed Hearse is a 2-mana artifact vehicle. We can tap it to exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards exiled with it. And you can crew it for 2. So this is awesome graveyard hate, but also, again, another endgame threat if it goes unanswered. So it turns off whatever opponents you're sideboarding this in against, and then you can kill them with it, which feels just super, super good. So you're going to select 13 of these 28 cards to add to your sideboard. You're going to select 3 of these 6 cards to add to your main deck, and then you have your very own but stock version of red-black midrange in Pioneer. With Fable stuff. Most of these tips and tricks are regarding Fable because it's the only weird card in our deck, really. So Fable can combo with itself. When you flip Fable the Mirror Breaker into Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, it has the ability to pay 1 mana, tap it, and then copy target non-legendary creature. Now, if you have 2 reflections of Kiki-Jikis, understand that my mic fell down. Understand that these reflections go away on the next end step. So, if during your opponent's end step, you're not afraid of removal, and you tap a Reflection of Kiki-Jiki to copy your other Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, it makes a token copy of Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which is a 2/2 with that ability. You can then tap that token copy, because it has haste, to copy another Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, and do this as many times as you have mana. And then you get to untap, because they aren't sacrificed, because you did it in the end step. That's not the next end step. And they can attack, and you can just win the game off of having these multiple reflections of Kiki-Jikis. Now, another interesting combo is when you make that token copy, end of the battlefield effects happen again, and the thing has haste. So a very classic combo is Reflection of Kiki-Jiki and Blood Tithe Harvester. So if you copy Blood Tithe Harvester with Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, this new Blood Tithe Harvester enters, you get another blood token, and this new Blood Tithe Harvester has haste, and you're sacrificing it on your end step anyway. So you can sacrifice this Blood Tithe Harvester to kill one of your opponent's creatures. And then a turn cycle happens, your turn again, copy Blood Tithe Harvester. Sacrifice it, kill an opponent's creatures. It's effectively a removal spell on a stick that is absolutely disgusting. Similarly, you can copy a Fear of Missing Out to not only get the draw effect again, because that's the end of the battlefield effect, but it has haste. So if you have Delirium, you get another additional combat by copying Fear of Missing Out. There's just so many cool ways to play with Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. That being said, the only other weird thing that's important to remember is Mutavault is a demon. So having an activated Mutavault on your end step makes your Unholy Annex drain instead of deal damage to you. And sometimes you just want to like man up Mutavault with itself before your end step so that you get the beneficial Unholy Annex trigger, because that drain really adds up. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.